Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this. Okay. Thank you very much, Ikes. And a beautiful good evening to everyone. You're welcome to the Node.js intermediate class. And it's going to be a very lovely experience. I can almost promise you that, but I certainly believe it's going to be an exciting moment. And yes, this is the intermediate class. So let me confirm that I can be heard. Mehdi, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. We're hearing you.
Okay, great. Okay, so what I want is first of all to establish some class keeping rules. So one is you'd need to keep your microphone muted so that we can all hear the person who's going to be speaking at each point. Okay. Then if you have like a question, you can either drop that in the chat box. Okay. It would be a lot better to drop that in the chat room. So if you have questions, you drop that there. Then you could also raise your hand. Okay, you could raise your hand to notify us. So I wouldn't be doing this alone. I have a co-host with me. So I'll be introducing him soon, and he's the mentor for the Node.js intermediate class. So this class should be as interactive. Okay, it should be an interactive class because come on, if you're on this program, there are different places where you could learn Node.js online on different platforms. But the purpose of us having a classroom setting is so that you can ask your questions. So where you are stuck, we could bail you out. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them, but please let all things be done in decency, in order, with decorum. So once again, my name is Benjamin. If you need to, I'm a software developer. I specialize with the MEN and the .NET full stack. Okay, so I'm actually a full stack developer. I work with on front end and back end. But for the purpose of this training, we'll be focusing more on back end technology. And let's say I've been in programming for probably over like close to should be up to 11 years. Okay, up to 11 years. Started far back with Fortran, and then from there made progress into computer simulations in petroleum related programming. Then from there to Visual Basic, for application VBA. Then from there to Python, and I decided to master or to focus more on the MEN and the .NET full stack. So these are my two areas of specialization, and I'm not alone on this. We have also our mentor. He is Prosper, and he is a backend specialist. Okay, he is experienced with Node.js, MongoDB, Express, TypeScript, as in TypeScript. Okay, and he's a great hand. So you can reach out to any of us. Our Slack handles are there. Mine is Aerosoft, and Prosper is Prosper.js. So you can always reach out to us on the Slack handle. You have questions, you have issues, you're stuck somewhere and you need help, you can easily reach out to us to bail us out. So Prosper, do you just want to welcome them? You want to say the word welcome to them?
Yeah. So good evening, everybody. Like Benjamin said, my name is Prosper Ovieke. I'm a backend developer. Yeah, so my stack is Node.js, MongoDB, Express.js, and TypeScript. So yeah, just to add to what he has said, we should put in maximum participation in everything we're going to do here, and then expect the best from it. So once again, welcome to KodeCamp, welcome to Node.js. I believe we're going to have a swell time. Yeah, so welcome again. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks very much, Prosper. So like you've heard it, we are open, we are accessible, and we're here for you. So let's go straight into the business of today. So let's start first of all with an important topic, which is the overview of web request. Okay, web request lifecycle. So what happens when you try to access the web? Let's look at ourselves as users now. For example, let's say I'm a user and I want to access the web. Let me fetch a tool. So let me fetch a pointer so I can be able to do that. Okay, so let's say, all right, what like? Okay, so let's say I'm a user, and as a user, I want to access the internet. So I'm here on my PC, and I'm trying to access the internet. You ask yourself questions like, what happens? What exactly makes the web work? Why is it when I go to such a site, after a couple of seconds, something is happening? And then also, why does it take long? What's the reason behind what is happening on your device? So basically, we just look at, just a brief overview. So you've heard the word clients, and this is an intermediate class. So I expect that probably most of us will be familiar with these terms, but I'd just like to go over it again. Now, you've heard the word client, and client is usually, referring to more of the applications that you have on your devices, the user interface application. So it could be your browser, for example. Okay, so your browser most times would be what we refer to as the client. When how the user accesses the web, how the user tries to access such site he wants to go to or the information, that will be your client. If it's a mobile device, it's also still your client. If it's maybe an application, maybe it's not even a browser, but an application that can also reach out to the internet, that is also the client. So the client now sends a request, and the request, goes via the URL. Okay, it goes and goes to the internet. And when we say internet, okay, all of this basically are just like connected technology. So I don't want to have to put this picture here, but I think this best explains or describes what we are looking at. So let's say it goes to the internet via whatever means. Maybe you're using hotspot, maybe you're using whatever means to connect to the internet. Now, that request is coming to the server. So what is the server, or what could we refer to as the server? Now, think of a server as a computer or a group of computer or connected devices that are used for processing requests and information and all the things that the individual is trying to do. Now, on the server side, we have more like computers that will pick the information. Let's say the site you want to work in is hosted on a server now. It's hosted on a server, or most times it is like spread over different, different units or computers. Now, this server, what it does is it picks your request. It processes your request, and your request could be anything. It could be maybe just to do a simple work or something that needs to connect to a database. It may connect to the database. It may also process the information based on what it receives from the database, and based on or whatever operation is to do, when it finally has a result or what it is to represent to the user, it sends that back as a response. Okay, so that response is also communicated via the internet and back to the client. So basically, what you're doing here is you're churning out requests. You're sending that this is what I want, and then the client sends that what it wants based on the request, and the server works on it based on whatever logic or whatever setup has been put together on the server side. So here you have a development or approach for the client side, and here you also have a development approach for the server side. So as we go on, we'll look deeper into this. This is just basically an overview. So let's go on. So when talking about Node.js, now being here in the intermediate class, it's expected that you have passed the Node.js intermediate tasks to be here. So you should be familiar with these terms, but I would like to go over them for clarity. So when we say Node.js, what is Node.js? Now, Node.js is an asynchronous, event-driven JavaScript runtime environment, okay? Now, I'm going to be breaking the terminologies down, okay, as we go. So we will look into what do we mean by the word asynchronous? What do we mean by event-driven? We know JavaScript, for those who are familiar with programming, or at least, heard a thing about web development, you're familiar with the term JavaScript. And then we'll look into runtime. What is a runtime environment? Okay, so Node.js is basically an asynchronous event-driven JavaScript runtime environment by definition. And it is designed for easily building fast, lightweight, scalable, and efficient network applications. Okay, now it is basically a server-side platform built on Google Chrome's JavaScript engine. Now, when we looked here on this side, on our client side, back then, what we had on the on the client side on a web browser were basically HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then HTML is basically the markup language. CSS gives it styling. Then JavaScript is what makes it more or less animated, able to perform different functions. So it's more like a scripting language, and it was based on it was on the client side to be able to run client-side functions. So for example, maybe you want to submit a file, you click the submit button, that's a JavaScript operation. All those events that are done on the client side were based on the JavaScript there. Now, this time around, what we have now is we have this Node.js now is working based on Chrome's JavaScript engine, which is called the V8 engine. And what it is doing is it's providing or working as a runtime environment for you to be able to run some codes or to do some programming based on your JavaScript library. So what Node.js is essentially is it is a runtime environment. So when we say runtime environment, it is more like a place where your code can be run. It is like a system. It is like providing an environment for you to be able to run or do something based on the code that is placed there. And JavaScript, the library. So it is providing the extensions of what JavaScript can do. Okay, so it has an extensive JavaScript library base. So JavaScript as a programming language has several operations that you can do on them. For example, you can work with arrays. You can filter through an array. You can map through an array. You can do several operations. You can work on what information that you receive on the server side. Okay, so let's look at these characteristics in details. Now, event-driven. Now, I'm going to explain event-driven in the next slide. So let me go to the next one. The next one says fast. Now, there are different types of browsers, and the browsers have their main engines behind them. Okay, so they have their main engines behind them. You have the engines for Opera, you have engines for Firefox, and then you have engines for Microsoft Edge and JavaScript. And Google. Now, Google's V8 engine is considered and is by it's clearly the fastest. Okay, so it's not just considered by all manner of tests and everything. Google's V8 engine is considered the fastest, and it was then used by Ryan Dale in May 2017. He came up with the Node.js platform. So he was the one who built it. And afterwards, it was made open source. I'll explain that later. Okay, so in terms of performance, someone's microphone is unmuted. Okay, so in terms of performance, JavaScript is fast, and also now being used here in Node.js, it provides fast results. Now, the next is lightweight. Okay, so it's not a heavy application. If you want to build small or even big applications, the applications doesn't weigh much on memory. Okay, so when we're talking of lightweight, it means that it's not heavily using memory. So memory consumption is relatively low. So that's what we mean when we're talking about lightweight. Then scalable. Scalable means you can scale into very large, from small to very large applications. You can also be able to deploy in different compartments. By the time we get to deployment and introduce terminologies like Docker and Kubernetes, or if you're already familiar with that, we will see, okay, we will see that. Okay, then single-threaded and asynchronous non-blocking I/O, okay, input-output operation. So I'm going to explain these three terms: event-driven, single-threaded, and asynchronous non-blocking operations in the next slide. So let's go. Okay, so we have what we call the Node.js event loop. We have what we call the Node.js event loop. And basically, when we talk of Node.js, this is the core, this is the core functionality or the core technology in Node.js. This is what Node.js is all about. This is like the core of Node.js as a server-side programming tool. So when we say that Node.js is event-driven, what is an event? Okay, now basically an event could be considered somewhat like when a user actions. Okay, so when a user decides, for example, to click on something, that's a user action. When a user decides to hover, okay, so when you hover over a page, that's an action. When you you try to submit a file, that's an action. So all those actions are relatively events. When a page loads, that's an event. So there are a series of different events in that are particular to browsing operations and things like that. And what the event loop basically is it is more or less an event listener. Okay, so the event loop is more or less an event listener. So let me bring out the spotlight. Okay, so it's more or less an event listener. So let's say, for example, a request is coming now from the client. Okay, a response is coming now from the client, and as this event comes here, what you have here is an event loop that is perpetually active. Okay, so here it is perpetually active, and what it is doing now, or an event listener that's perpetually active, is it is always listening for events. Is there an event? If there is no event, consider that you say it's idle, and then there is an event. Then what am I to do with this event? So when a request comes in, you have that the event is first placed in a queue. Okay, so the event is first placed in a queue, and by the time we move to, we're going to be talking about data structures. We'll talk about data structures later on, and we'll talk about some other aspect of object-oriented programming. Now, basically, what a queue is a queue is a first in, first out operation. Someone's mic is unmuted. Okay, a queue is a first in, first out operation. And what this queue does, okay, what this queue does is, I think I need to prevent people from unmuting themselves onto, okay, let's just look like that. Please, everybody, leave your mics muted. Now, so a queue is a first in, first out operation. Okay, so let's say, for example, you have series of events that come in. When this event comes in, it is placed in this queue. Now, the event loop is always listening. So what it will do is it's going to pick the first event, okay, based on how it came in. It's going to pick the first event and it's going to access it. Is it something that requires certain of these operations? So basically, the operations in the server side that are expensive, okay, when we talk about expensive, talking about memory usage and time, talking about time, we'll look at that aspect when we get to data structures or how operations basically are expensive. operations basically are expensive. Okay, they take time and to give they take time to give a result. Okay, so what the event loop will do is the event loop will check if this operation is not an expensive operation, if it is not going to take time to resolve this operation, it is not an input-output operation, it will take that, it is going to take that event, process it, and send it, and send the request back in the queue, and then it's going to be sent to the client. Okay, so the event loop will check this operation I want to perform, or this operation that came in, first operation, is it expensive? Is it an input-output operation? Is it something that needs any of these things on this side? If not, process it quickly. Now, if it's an expensive operation, then what it's going to do is it is going to place this operation here in a thread pool. Okay, and this stack here is a thread pool. And what this will do is any expensive operation, any operation that is going to take time to run, it's going to push it away from the queue and put it here in the thread pool. So the thread pool here is more like an isolated stack that is going to perform the operation. So here you can consider here as waiting list of operations that need to be done, and when they are ready, it is only when that these operations have been done and they are ready, then it will be sent back to the queue. Okay, so let's say, for example, I'm going to demonstrate this. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate this by the time we get to that. But let's say, for example, I have 3 operations. One operation is going to take, let's say, like 5 to 10 seconds to perform, while the other 3 operations here are going to take maybe like some nanoseconds to work on. So it's going to pick the ones that are going to come. You check it. Is it very fast? Okay, something I can run very fast. Quickly run it and send it here back to the queue, and then it should be sent as a response. Now, if it's going to take time, 5 seconds, 10 seconds more, send it here to this place. So in this place here, this is a parallel or isolated area where long calls, input operations, expensive operations go in. So at this point, the event loop is always running and checking. If it picks something here and it's going to take time, send it here, and it keeps running. So I'm going to go over the analogy of how this works. Shortly. So let's look at the asynchronous. Let's look at asynchronous operation in this slide now. Now, this is a common task for web server, and the web server can open a file. Okay, so it can open a file on the server and return the content to the client. So let's see how a language like PHP or ASP handles a file request. So remember, I said things like file request. Okay, dealing with the file system, dealing with database, dealing with network operations. I said that these are expensive operations. So let's look at how PHP will handle this. So PHP receives the request, okay, and it says it sends the task to the computer's file system. It waits while the file system opens and reads the file. After it has opened and read the file, it returns the content to the client. And when it returns the content to the client, it is then ready to handle the next request. So here, let's say we have like 3 requests coming in, and these requests are synchronous, okay? Synchronous in that they move one after the other, okay? Synchronous, they move one after the other. Now, in this case, PHP will wait for the tags, okay? It's going to send the tags to the file system and then wait for the file system to open and read the file. When it has opened and it has read the file, it is then going to return the client, the content to the client, which is the browser. And when it has done that, it says, okay, now I am ready for the next request. Now, how does Node.js handle it? Node.js sends the tags to the computer's file system. And voila, it is ready to handle the next request. So it instantly sends the file to the computer system, the task to the computer system, and the event loop is free again, okay? The event loop is free to take on another task. Now, while the event loop is trying to take another task here, this thread pool on this other side, this thread pool is working on the task that was sent to it. So the event loop picks this task, the file now to open the file, it picks this task, sends it here to the thread pool, comes here, looks, what other task can I take? Okay, if this task is also another one, send it here again. Okay, what other task can I take? If this task is an easy one, operate on it and send it back to the user while this is still ongoing. So that's an asynchronous operation. So synchronous is wait for each thing to be in order. While asynchronous is that all this okay, while this is while the asynchronous is all of these things are moving, parallel. Okay, all right, okay. So Node.js, what it does, it says when the file system has opened and read the file, okay, then the server returns the content to the client. So it can handle multiple tasks at the same time. And when we say it is single-threaded, what we mean essentially is that this event loop is basically one thread. So for multi-thread, you're talking about like maybe like what we say is a server-side program that would have multiple processes moving. How do we put it now? Each particular system, for instance, has a processor. So what it wants to do now is you want to break everything down into like small processes that will go on together at the same time. And at that point, it is expensive because it's using so much of computer memory and space and all that. Okay, so, but in Node.js, it's just single-threaded. The event loop will just check, is there something in the queue? There's nothing, remain idle. Is there something in the queue? If there's something in the queue, I can handle it fast, process, and send back. Is there something in the queue? If it's going to take long, send it here to the thread pool where it will be worked on. And while it is being worked on, the event pool is free to take another task. So that's the basic idea, and that's what makes it very fast, and that's what makes a whole lot of organizations consider using Node.js. So it eliminates the waiting time and simply continues with the next request. So what other considerations could we have for why we should use Node.js? So let's look at other considerations. One of them is it's open source, okay? So it's open source and it's free. Okay, it's free to use. You don't have to pay to use Node.js. It's open source also, meaning that you can contribute to the development, and with thousands of developers contributing to Node.js, it means that it's going to have so much of functionality. Imagine, for example, that a well-sound developer, an advanced developer, tries to solve a problem and he realizes that this problem is generic. It's something that happens in a particular niche of programming, and it decides to, okay, these solutions I have done, let me make it available so others can be able to do that. But he's not working at Node.js, for example, or somewhere. All he needs to do is, to try to contribute what he has to the open source system. It's accepted, and when it's reviewed, and that you have a new solution that's free for everybody worldwide to use. So it's open source. Then it's cross-platform, meaning that it can be installed on different platforms. You can install it. You can work with it on the iOS operating system. You can work with it on Windows, on Linux. You can work with it also on even on Android systems. So you can actually install Node.js in some form on Android systems. So it is also it has a formidable ecosystem. So you have like millions of developers worldwide, and they are willing and open to communicate. So, for example, you're stuck somewhere, you can go to Stack Overflow, and the likelihood is if you are stuck with anything from beginner to intermediate level, you most likely see somebody that's already put out a solution there because someone else has faced or likely faced what you are experiencing. And then if the thing gets to an advanced level, you can also reach out on the forum and ecosystem, and people who will be able to help will also help you out. So that's one advantage or consideration you should look at. Then for full stack purposes, so if you're already experienced in working on front-end technology, maybe you're experienced with working with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Node.js is basically built using JavaScript library. So the syntax isn't any much different, okay? So it makes it very easy for you to switch from being a front-end developer to becoming a full stack as you learn backend. So it's easy for those who are already familiar with front-end technology, React, Angular, Vue.js, and such. It's easy for you to be able to switch into being a full stack developer. So you have the advantage, it will be less, time. Now, let's look at where to use Node.js and where not to use Node.js. Now, one thing we have to understand is each different framework or each different technology have their own areas of strength and areas of weakness. So let's look at one of those areas of strength. Now, Node.js is very good with input-output bound operations. I just explained to you how the event loop, it's going to be very fast at taking inputs, and when you have input operations, it places them, in the stack, waiting for it to be run. And while it is being run or being processed, the event loop is free again to take new operations. So it can perform, or it can, perform very well with input-output bound applications. Now, Node.js is also very good with data streaming applications. Okay, now it doesn't buffer. Okay, so Node.js doesn't buffer. For those who are familiar with buffering, if you've tried to use certain sites in the time past, I don't know if it still is such in those sites now, but if you try to use some sites in the time past, you have buffering. It tries to load so much of the information and everything before it begin to start watching it. However, Node.js doesn't buffer. What it does, it gives the data in chunks. So the data you are trying to stream, it releases it in chunks. Okay, so it releases it in chunks, and that's the reason why you even have Netflix. Netflix uses Node.js for that, because it becomes better for streaming. So Node.js, if you are doing anything data streaming, Node.js is one of the best applications to use for that. Another is data intensive real-time applications. Now, when we say real-time, we're talking about like things that happen live, like chatting. Okay, so chatting is a real-time application. And we've also seen how by reason of the event loop, it's easy for you to, put away things that are going to take so much time, things that are expensive. Let me just use the word expensive. That's going to put away expensive operations in a parallel place for you to be working, while it frees the event loop to continue other things. So it is very, very performant for intensive real-time applications. So you can talk about chatting, you can talk about chat box, you can talk about some other real-time applications. So another is the JSON API-based application. So it's very good for dealing with JSON API-based applications dealing with REST and such. So this is talking about backend technology. Okay, so it is very good for data API-based applications like backend technology, GraphQL and such. And it is also great for single page applications. So we usually call them SPAs. Now, single page applications are basically what you get when you work with React, when you work with Vue.js, AngularJS. Those are basically the end results. Work with Next.js. So they are single page applications, and honestly, they are very fast. As a matter of fact, like, I don't really know how to describe them as fast, because I built some. Okay, I've built some single page applications using React, and you click on something and it just moves to the next page. There's no need for you to wait for it to connect. So it is not going to try to reach back to the server to try and say, okay, send me the new page, let me load the page and then send it back to the user. So that time that it takes in loading and all that, that time is taken off using Node.js. Now, Node.js is not good with CPU intensive applications. Okay, it is not so good with CPU intensive applications that have to do with lots of data processing, lots of analytics. So if you are to work with such form of things, you prefer using Python, for example, for that, because Python is very good with lots of expensive calculations and processing. So you need to know the strengths and where it is. So we have famous apps that are built with Node.js. We have PayPal, we have LinkedIn, we have Netflix, we have Uber, we have GoDaddy. And as a matter of fact, Siemens has their smart grid, which is more of an Internet of Things application. It has their smart grid built using Node.js. So you can see that there's a robust application for working with that. So if you have questions, you can drop them in the chat so that time to time I go there. So let's look at the career opportunities or applications. The first misconception that a lot of people have is when they hear Node.js, they usually think of Node.js for backend technology, and I would say that's very much misplaced. Okay, so Node.js is basically used for server-side, rendered applications. Okay, it's used for server-side rendered applications, and the applications of such is not limited to the back end. Okay, now you have that platforms, or let's say libraries like React and frameworks like Angular and Vue.js, they are built on the Node.js ecosystem. So if you want to look at career opportunities, you have career opportunities for front-end with Node.js, Angular, Vue and stuff. You have also the career opportunities also for backend. You have Express, Nox, Nest, Next.js, and the list goes on, Core. Then you also have, mobile development, also with Node.js, React Native and such. Then you also have blockchain. You can actually use Node.js for blockchain development. So you have some frameworks to work with like Nix and Fabric. And you also need to learn Solidity and stuff for smart contracts. But yes, Node.js is used for blockchain development. And it's actually very good because I just explained to you, like how it deals with the expensive operations. So it's very good, very fast, very performant. And then we have also the Internet of Things. Okay, so the Internet of Things, you have frameworks like Cylon, Favor, IoT.js, and these are just to mention like a few applications in which Node.js is used. So what we will be learning is we'll be learning backend development, and the core technologies we'll be using Node.js. We'll be using the Express.js framework, and we'll be using MongoDB as our database. Okay, so MongoDB is actually, more or less, it uses JavaScript. Okay, it uses JavaScript for its scripting, so it makes it very good since you're familiar with JavaScript or get more familiar with JavaScript. It makes it good to use MongoDB. So this Node.js Express and MongoDB is part of what we call the MERN stack. So the arrow in the MERN stack is for React. So you could decide if you want to be full stack afterwards, if you're not, or you could decide if you want to just continue with backend technology. So we're looking at the tools we're going to use. So for the purpose of this training, you need to download and install Node.js, which I believe we should have this already, since we are in the intermediate level. Then we'll look at how to test for if Node.js is active on our systems. Then we have what we call the Node Package Manager. We'll also look at that. So for me, my choice of editor for general coding and all that is VS Code. So I'll be using VS Code. And there are a whole lot of extensions that you can add to VS Code, but two core extensions we use will be Prettier and ESLint. So ESLint is going to get way advanced. Okay, so we'll start with Prettier and probably when we get towards the end of this program, we'll introduce ESLint so that you can be a better developer. So ESLint is a lot more strict, and it's a lot more strict. It makes you conform to like a certain set of rules or acceptable syntax in writing. So we'll start with Prettier, which will be pretty much helpful, and then later Prettier is more of just a formatter. Okay, it's more of a code formatter. So we'll start with that. Then when we get further on, we'll introduce ESLint. Then you should also be familiar with working with Git and GitHub by now, but if you're not, we're also still here to help. So here in this place here, okay, here is a link that is where we will be keeping the files. Okay, so this is the link to a folder where we'll be keeping the files from each class, the assignments, you meet them there, the tasks that you need to do, you also meet them there. So later on, we'll get clear on the modus operandi of how we are going to work with this. But please and please and please, you are not allowed to edit or delete anything there. You'll just be a viewer. Okay, so for this, you just be a viewer for the Google Drive. Okay, so this is the link. It's available. It's going to be shared to you after the class. You can also take a screenshot, but it doesn't make sense taking a screenshot and having to type this number. So we're going to share this with you, and the materials will be available. Okay, so let's get straight into the business of today. Okay, so let's get straight into the business of today. So, so far, any questions before I go into the installation process? Do we have any questions? If you have any questions before we go through the installation process and we carry out a little bit of a demo of what we talked about today. If you have a question, you can raise your hand. Okay. If you have a question, you can raise your hand, and they'll call on you to unmute yourself. Any such person? Okay, none from here. Okay, also seeing none from here. Okay. I can see a hand up. Delight, you can unmute yourself and ask a question. Delight, you can unmute yourself and ask a question. If any other person has a question, you can also raise your hand so I can call on you. Delight, can you unmute yourself and ask a question? Okay, it says not allowed.
All right. Yeah, it's okay. It's working now. Good evening.
All right.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask. Yes, when you were discussing about the event queue and the thread pool, I wanted to ask: are they dependent on each other, or the event queue doesn't really have any direct access to the thread loop?
Okay, to the thread loop. Okay, so let me display that screen again so that I'll take it again. Okay, so let me display that screen and take it again. All right, so can you see my screen first off?
Yes, I can.
Okay, you can still see the screen, right?
Yes, I can still see.
Okay, so basically, the event loop is a listener. Okay, it's a listener. It's basically an event listener, and it's listening for events. So here we have event, and when the event comes, the event is queued. Now this event is queued in a manner of first come, first served, first in, first out. Okay, so that's basically a queue, and the events are queued here. Now this thread pool here is isolated and working on its own, and what it does is when the operation is complete, when it has completed its operation, it is going to send this information back to the queue as the most recent, okay, as based on the queue as the most recent, event that is coming in. So then the event loop will check it and say, oh, okay, this operation is done now. Okay, then it's going to fire the callback, or it's going to let me not just use the word callback. It's going to then give the result of whatever has been computed here. So this here works on its own. You can say that its connection to the event loop is just for receiving the task for it to do. And when the task has been done, the task will be sent to the queue. The event loop will check the queue again. What are the things that are in the queue? And if it checks and it sees, okay, there's a new event here, okay? So the result that has been done here and sent here is sent as a new event that the event will listen for. And when it sees, oh, this new event is ready, then the results, send it as a response. I don't know if you got that. Did you get that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so that's the relationship between that and the event queue. Yes, any other person, any other question? Any other person, any other question, you can raise your hand so we can call on you. Okay, if you have a question, do let us know. Okay, so let's move on. So I'm going to be sharing my screen once again, and okay, so I'm going to share my screen once again. So yeah, all right. Okay, so here this is Chrome, my Chrome browser, and the site to go to download Node.js is called NodeJs.org. Okay, NodeJs.org, and when you go here, you have two options here. Okay, so one, it's going to show you for the current Windows you're on, if you're using 32 bits or if you're using 64 bits, to show you the one that's appropriate. If you're using a Mac, it's going to show you the one that's appropriate. So you have to choose between these two. So this one here, okay, is this LTS means long-time support, okay, long-time support. And what it means is that it's recommended for most users. It has support. It has most of the dependencies and things that are here have been scrutinized and they are working, okay, and the support is available for them. However, this here provides you the latest features. However, some of these features are still under testing. They are still under development. So you more likely find that in some cases it might not work for certain devices, some things might not work well or stuff like that. So you just want to stick to the latest version of the long-term support. So this is recommended for most users. Now, if you click on this instantly, it's going to begin a download operation, and Node.js is pretty much not a heavy file. Okay, so I'll just download it again. I already have my system, but I'll just download it again, and I'll walk you through the installation process. So, all right. So let me try to share my entire window. Let me try to share my entire window so that okay, let me try to share my entire window. Okay. Come on, I want to share my entire window so you can see everything is great. So, all right. Okay, so I'm trying to open the okay. So I'm trying to open Node.js and then this wizard, which is setup. I have this exact same version, so that's why it's showing me change. And oh well, I'll just click that and everything, and then okay, so it's going to load everything. And once that is said and done, it's as simple as that. So if you want to check if Node.js is installed in your system, you can basically just go to the command prompt and okay, so if we go to command prompt and type node space -v, and it should show you the version. So if it shows you v16 or whatever version you have at whatever time you are watching this video, it means that you have Node.js installed on your system. Okay, so that's how you check. Then you can also check for if you have npm installed. Okay, so npm is a node package manager, and it comes together with Node. So you don't need to install npm. npm comes, together with Node. So as you're downloading and installing Node, you're also installing npm manager at the same time. So once again, you can do node space -v, or you can do -- version, whichever you prefer, and it will give you the current version that you have on your system. So that's one. Then the next you want to do, is you want to be sure that you have the right code editor stored. So okay, right. Okay, so Visual Studio Code. Okay, code.visual. Okay, so you can go to code.visualstudio.com, and here code editor. So here, I don't think I need to download this already. I already have it installed on my device. So all you just need to do is download and just follow the default settings. It works fine. And moving over to my code editor. Okay, so I'm moving over to my code editor, and this is VS Code. So let me start with a new window. So here, in case you're not familiar with VS Code, I'll take some time to explain, just in case. Maybe you're familiar with other editors. You could also use them if you're familiar with other editors. You know, that's okay. So basically, VS Code is an IDE, and it's meant for file selection. Brings up the terminal here, and the terminal basically does exactly the same thing that your normal command prompt does. Okay, so here, if I want to do, for example, node space -v, it will also give me the same response. Okay, so I could decide to run code here from my terminal, or I could decide to run code from my command prompt. Both of them will work. However, there are some things we need to get familiar with, which I will explain to you much on. Okay, so let me open to the folder I'll be using for today's class. So I have here KodeCamp, and I always advise that you create your own specific terminal. Okay, so create your own terminal. Okay, so create your own. So let me use the code space here. So I'll use here. So create your own KodeCamp, so it's easy for you to be able to check through. Okay, so at any point in time, if you want to go through materials and things related to KodeCamp, have like a place where all things are stored. Okay, so this here is my code space I want to use here, and here you can do this to create a file. You can do this to create a folder, refresh. You can also decide to collapse, which you see much on. So let me just create this, and I'll call this week 1. I'll call this week 1 for lack of what name to call it now. So I'll call it week 1, and I want to navigate into week 1. Now, normally, what you see when you open the terminal in your code base, it is going to that level that you are in. This is code space. It's going to open to this folder level. So here you can see I'm in documents, I'm in KodeCamp, Node.js intermediate class, and then here I'm in code space. This is the folder, the directory I'm in. Now, if I want to navigate into this directory, I can do cd and just type in maybe w and say tab, and I am now in this directory, okay, in week 1 directory. However, here in this place, I am in this folder. So I want to explain this because a lot of people have mistakes, or a lot of people find a lot of issues when they work with this. So let's say, for example, I have a new file, and this file, I'll call this text. Okay, I'll call this text. Okay, let me just create a new file. Let me call this file let me call this file index.js. Okay, just call it index.js, and in this file, I just want to do something. Let me just say console.log, console.log, hello there. Okay, hello there. Just put that. Now, if I was to run this file, now this file is not in week 1. Let me call this. Let me create a file in week 1, and you see the difference. Okay, so let me call this one server.js. Okay, now this file here is in week 1, and I want to do the same. Let me say console.log. let me hide from the server. Okay, so hide from the server. And here now, if I try to run this node space server, here I can access the server in this file, okay, because I'm in week 1, but I cannot access this index.js here in this place. And if I try to do that for week 1, it's not going to work because it cannot find the file. So most times, challenges people usually face is working with the file. So here I just move the file now into index.js, and you can always click up or down in your arrow to be able to run through this. So now I move this file into week 1, and you see now I can access it here and it's working fine. So please be familiar with working with your file structure. So what I would just do is I prefer opening to the root file or the file I want to be the main file for that day. So here I'll look at week 1 and I'll select this folder, and that will become the name. So this week 1 here is the main file for today, and anything I want to run here will be that. So today, what I want to show you, okay, for start today is asynchronous operations. I want to show you some asynchronous operations using, let me delete this. So I want to show you some asynchronous operation as how it works in Node.js, like I talked about in the event loop. So here we have like our terminal open at the bottom, and we have like let's say we have 3 operations we want to happen. Okay, console.log, or let me say statement. Let me say first statement. Let me call this first statement. First statement. Okay, or here let me duplicate this to I think night mode has come on my system. Let me turn this off. Okay. Okay, so let's say we have statement 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so I'll call this second statement, and I'll call this third statement. Now, if I was to run Node, okay, if I was to run Node, I'm in the right folder. Okay, if I was to run Node, you will see here that these 3 statements are running at the same time. Okay, sorry, not the same time. They are running as in sequence from top to bottom. First statement, second statement, and third statement. Generally, you call that synchronous. Okay, you call that synchronous, but Node or JavaScript is not synchronous. JavaScript is asynchronous, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. Now, this is the first statement, and this is the second statement. So I want to introduce an expensive operation here, okay? An expensive operation, something that's going to take time to get results. So we can use what we call the set timeout, okay? So we can use the set timeouts, or let me just use the set timeout syntax here. So we can use the set timeout, and this set timeout here, what it does is that it takes a function, okay? It takes a function, and was the first callback, it takes a function, what it's going to do, and it is going to do that within a time. So this is the amount of time delay that it's going to do, or it's going to give. So I want to do this operation here, okay? I wanted to take a time of, let's say, 3 seconds. So this 3 seconds here, it's set time is usually in milliseconds. So this 3,000 here is basically just 3,000 milliseconds, which is 3 seconds. So now if I run the same program again, now you will notice here that the first statement ran, the second statement ran, and after some time, the first statement ran, the third one ran. After some time, the second one finally showed up. Let me increase the time to 5 seconds so you get to see what I'm talking about clearly. So you all should look at, let me clear the screen, please. So let's look at it again. So I'm going to run node, okay, node index.js. So you see here, it ran the first operation, the third operation, and now the second operation. So what happened here is the event, list now, the event picked the first statement, looked at it as something it can handle fast, Then the second statement, when it got to it, it looked at it as an expensive operation, and it sent it to the to the queue, okay, to the stack, and then from there, that's the pool now, and then from there it continued with the third operation. When it looked at the third one, it says, oh, okay, this one is something I can do fast. Do this quickly, and then let me keep waiting for the results. So when the result from the second one came, it was sent back to the event queue, and the event listener, which is always running, processed it and gave back that response. So once again, let's begin. So we see the first comes in, the third comes in, and then we're waiting for the second. So the second is ready. So let me do this. So let me have, let me set up another set timeout that, let me set another set timeout that takes a little less time and a little more time. So I'll just duplicate this. So let me duplicate this. And, let me give this one a timeout of 10. Okay, I'll give it a timeout of 10 seconds. I'll call this the third statement. So I'll call this the third statement. And, I'll call this the third statement. And this would then become the fourth statement. Okay, so this would then become the fourth statement. So here we have four things that we want. We have four things that we want, and let me clear this up. So here we have four things that we want. The first is going to run, the second, the third, and the fourth. All of these are going to be picked and placed in the event queue on the first come, first serve, first in, first out basis. Now, when this is run, you would notice, okay, that here the first statement comes, the second statement is piled up, and the third one is also piled up, but the fourth one comes back immediately. So if you saw this here, you saw the first statement came. It was quick because it wasn't an expensive operation. It was quickly processed and the result was given back. The fourth one, which is this one here, was quicker, okay? And this one took 10 seconds for it to run. So in other words, it wasn't ready. So while it was in the pool, being operated or worked on, the event loop was free to do other things. So when so operations like this, okay, operations like this that are expensive, they are usually called blocking operations. Okay, so this is one blocking operation, and this is another blocking operation. I don't know. Can I still be here? Can everybody hear me clearly? Prosper, am I well?
Yeah, we can hear you, yeah.
Okay, what about the text? Is it legible? Is it something everybody can see?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great.
From my end, everybody, I can see properly.
Okay, great. Okay.
So if you can't see the text, please, if you have any issue, you can drop it on the chat box. Yeah, Ben, continue.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so as we can see here, these operations now that basically are are expensive or take time or make the system have to wait. Basically, what we can refer to as blocking operations. Okay, so what JavaScript, which is asynchronous, would do, it's going to take these operations, put them aside, for them to be working on a parallel, which is the pool. And while these two are in the pool, it is going to continue with other ones that it can execute immediately. So the event loop picks it, runs it, returns. Picks this one, it is going to take long, send it to the to the pool, and then pick this one, send it to the pool. Now you will notice here that this one took 10 seconds for it to run and produce the result. So in other words, this is going to take longer. So it is basically when the result is ready that it sends it back to the queue. So that's why you can see that this third statement is coming first before this second statement, because the third statement became ready and available. It was sent back to the event queue and picked up by the event loop. And here we have the result from it. And also here now, this one now is also finally ready after 10 seconds. And let's do it again. Let's see how it goes again. So you see the first statement, fourth statement, then finally third should come in. The third statement came in, and then finally the fourth statement should come in. Oh, sorry, the second statement should come in. Okay, so this is basically the manner or pattern in which asynchronous operations work. Okay, so asynchronous is you are not waiting for each thing to be run line by line. You're not waiting for each code to be run line by line. So you're not saying that because this one came first and this one is not ready. Synchronous would be this one came first. This one came first. And as it came first, okay, I will do this first. After I've done this, what is next? Okay, this one is next. This one is going to take 10 seconds for it to be ready. We have to wait for 10 seconds before I can move to the next one. So when this one is ready and it gives back the information, then it will now print second. Then, this one is ready. That is what synchronous languages or programs do. But JavaScript is asynchronous. It doesn't wait. It looks at one and then it says, okay, if this one is not going to be ready, then it's going to move to the next. So that brings us to some terminologies that we are going to be seeing much later, which we'll call, they are called promises. Okay, they are called promises. So we'll be seeing promises. We'll be seeing async await. Okay, async await. And when we get further, in the class, we get to see promises, async and await, what they are used for and why they are used for. So let's say, for example, let me take a pause first and be sure that everybody's up to speed up to this point. Okay, so let's take a pause and be sure everybody's up to speed. Do we get it up to this point? Okay, if you get it up to this point, just drop a thumbs up. Okay, if you get it up to this point, just drop a thumbs up. So I know that we are getting it and we're following fine. Okay. Okay, great. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, great. Okay, all right, great. Okay, so I would, I think we've been able to cover like the main core aspects of today. So today was to introduce you to Node.js, to introduce you to the basic response, the web response lifecycle, and then to see how you can install Node.js if you don't have it, and also to be able to set up and everything. So we will be going over now to the workflow. Okay, so we're going over now to the workflow. So what we are going to be working with is we're going to be working with Express. Okay, we're going to be working with Express, and one of those things that I want to introduce you to today is package.json. In case you are not familiar with it, I like to carry everybody along. So I want to ask you that we all started, afresh, and if it's something you've not done in a long time, you want to refresh your memory and everything, you can go ahead to that. So I want to introduce you to how we work with NPM. Okay, so working with NPM, as I showed you before, if I want to run a Node.js application, the application usually ends with .js, that's the extension. And if I want to run them, I do node and the application itself. Okay. Now we also have npm, and npm is for installing packages. So I will start first of all by showing you basic things. So we'll start with npm init, and you can do npm init where you have to. If you do npm init, it's going to try to initialize. Okay, you're going to try to initialize what we call a package.json file, and this is more like how we describe them. Say like a manifest. Okay, so it's like a manifest of all the files, dependencies, operations, name of the project and owner and everything. So you can see here it says package name, and it's asking me, do I want to say one? I could decide to accept all the defaults. Okay, is this version 1? I can start to say yes, version 1. I could decide to give description of the project or the package. Then the entry point, what's the entry point to the file? Is it index.js, the test commands, the Git repository if there is any that's already available, the keyword, the author if you want to put in your name, and the license if you have one. And then you can say, is this okay? So it's showing you a summary, so book one and this and everything. And if such is okay, then you can say yes, and it creates the package of JSON file. So this is one approach if you are going to accept all the defaults, okay? If you're going to accept all the defaults. So what I would do is I'm going to delete this and I'll just show you the shorthand I use if I'm going to accept all the defaults. So if I'm going to accept all the defaults, I'll just go with npm init and I'll use a dash y, which is a flag. So when you see this, short syntax y and such, they are basically called flags. Okay, so this is a flag, so just dash y, which is a flag, and it's going to try to create everything, accepting all the defaults. So if you know you're going to accept all the defaults, you can do npm space init space dash y. Or if you want to change all those things, you can as well change them also in the file. So here you can decide to rename the name of the package, the version, the description, and the main file if you want. Then you can decide to have some scripts. Okay, so we'll look for that when we move into frameworks like Express. When we move into Express, we're going to look at the run scripts and things like that. So this is our package JSON file. So what does npm, or what is it used for? So it's basically used for, okay, all right, okay, I was checking the chat. Okay, now, so your npm, to get npm, you can go to npm.js, okay, npmjs.org, and what you do is the dependencies of things you use in programming, they're usually called packages. Okay, so Node.js calls them packages. If you are working with .NET calls them nuggets. Okay, so different frameworks have that different names for them. Okay, if you are working with Android, you also have their different names for them. So here in Node.js, they're called packages. So here you can search for packages and choose to install them. So let's, for instance, check the Express package and see what it is about. So here we have the Express package, and one very important key thing about working with packages is always go through your documentation, go through what they say about it. They oftentimes provide you with simple guidelines on how to use these packages. Okay, so they often will provide you with simple guidelines on how to use these packages, and it makes life easy for you. So this is npm.js, and here it shows you how you can install the module. So here you can see npm install, or you can do npm I express. So either one of them will work, and when you do that, it will then work in the package. Okay, but however, one of the most important things you need to work with or start with is, first of all, having your package JSON file. So the start for it is having a package JSON file. So we're going to copy this. So let me just copy this, and let me head over here. So here I have my package JSON file, and I want to delete it. Okay, I want to delete it just for examples, because oftentimes a lot of people call me or ask me with some simple challenges, and I'd like to handle some of them before we go forward. So here, if I try to install Express here, it's going to try to run the process, and by the end of the day, it's not going to find any way to be able to put things here. So luckily, I have a fast enough internet, so I can try this. Okay, so you can see here, it shows you that it seems as though the package is installed, but it's not working anywhere. Okay, so here you always have to start with npm init-y, and when you do that, you have a package JSON file. Then you can decide to do npm I express or npm install Express, both of them work. You can also do npm I and install multiple dependencies at the same time. However, I advise that if you are fresh, you're not so used to using npm, please install them one by one, because if one package name is wrongly spelled, the whole process could, the whole process could fail. It's happened to me before. I was working with React. So yeah, so let us install Express. Okay. So let's look at the package.json file. So as I try to install here, you will notice that a new thing that comes here. Okay, so here we call this a dependency, and then here you can see Express and you can see the version. Okay, so the version is shown here. Now, when we get to a point where we start working with Git, okay, I'm also going to show you one important thing. But the important thing is, if you are working with a Git file, maybe you have cloned a repo, one of the first things you want to do is you want to do npm install. So you just do npm space install, and this is going to install all the dependencies. Yeah. So one thing we see here is we see dependencies available. And the next is we see here a new folder comes up, which is called the Node module. Okay, so the Node modules contains like a whole lot of modules that are used in for different purposes. So the Node modules are available. It's used both on front end and back end, and it contains like different dependencies, okay, or libraries of dependencies. So here, Express here, it's going to add it to that. Then another thing is you might not want to send certain files when working, okay? When working with people, or when you're working with GitHub, you're pushing your code to GitHub, you don't want to send certain files to Git. So by the time we get to working with Git, let me check how much time I have to see if we can start working with Git today. We show from now with Git, okay? We still have a good amount of time. Now, these dependencies here, any dependency you add, it's going to be added to this place. Okay, so if you go back to here, and maybe you want to add, maybe like you want to work with MongoDB, for instance, and MongoDB uses Mongoose, or maybe you want to work with MySQL, you see that these different dependencies, okay, let me check the life or something. Okay. Now, each dependency has their own, name and the way in which they are installed. Quick search. So each dependency has their own name, their own way in which they are like installed. All right. Okay. Sorry. So each one of them has their own way in which they are installed. That and everything. So that's going to take that for all be familiar with. Should be familiar with working with this VS Code, the setup. Okay, familiar with the setup. You should be familiar with editing and everything. So at this point, I want to interact with us. Okay, at this point, I want to interact with us and capture just a couple of things like the why. Okay, I want to get the why you have worked with. Okay, why you want to learn Node.js. So you can put that in the chat section. Okay, why do you want to learn Node.js? What's your primary purpose? What do you hope to gain from this training? Today is more of an introductory session, so I don't want to go deep into hardcore work. Okay, so let's quickly visit the chat section. Okay, why do you want to learn Node.js? Well, what's your choice or what's your expectation, so that we can see how we can tailor everything to meet with as much of the expectations that we can.
Or Ben, I think they could put up their hand, and so let's have them speak.
Okay. So, all right, you can put up your hands. You can put up your hands. Let's have you speak if typing is going to take so much time. We're not too many today, so I can take that. Okay, so please put up your hands if you want to state why. Yes, anybody? Okay, Mandy, go ahead. Mandy, you can mute yourself and go ahead. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so Mandy, you can mute yourself now. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, yeah, it's actually there's this comparison I basically get to see online between Node.js and Python and how they actually do similar things. Yeah, I'm actually quite familiar with Python. Yeah, so but I actually love that. So the idea of actually coming to Node is to actually see, okay, how powerful are these two, okay, when it comes to building backend systems and the likes. And also the world is actually moving into IoT, blockchain, and stuff like that. And it's very much obvious that JavaScript so plays a very, very great role in those fields. So, and Web3 too as well. So I honestly don't want to be left behind. That's why I'm actually choosing Node.
Okay, great. That's great. I actually got to realize that Solidity even has so much of JavaScript related things in it. So getting very familiar with Node.js makes it easy for you to also leverage some of the things you gain from here to gain from there. Okay, so let's have a Moscotech. So Moscotech, go ahead. If there's another person, you can raise your hand.
Yeah, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good evening.
Okay. So in my case, I'm looking forward to migrating from PHP to JavaScript because JavaScript definitely has more functionality, and even if you look at it, companies who are based on PHP they are even migrating to JavaScript. So
yes,
that's why I'm going to JavaScript. Then also Web3 blockchain.
Okay, great. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Yes, any other person?
Yeah, so everybody's talking about Web3. There seems to be a lot of fuss around all of that. Hope it's not just about the big bags. Is that
Okay. Well, I see everybody talking about Web3. It's actually good. In fact, I believe that if you could get in there faster and secure your space as a dev in Web3, then that would be really great because when people are still trying to catch on things, you be like the one who puts them through, or the first considerations for hire is a very competitive environment, and you could also decide to come up with your own projects. So yes, it's great. Like I said, Node.js is one of the key players in working on Web3. So one of the key players in working on Web3. So lots of blockchain technology that are incorporating Node.js and different frameworks to be able to get it done. So yes. Okay, so we have someone here in the chat section. Solomon says, I decided to learn Node.js because I have been a mobile developer, so I want to know more about backend and see what it entails. And I like that very much. Because for me, I started as a backend developer. Node.js, and at some point in time, I realized that based on some of the things I worked with, the front-end people could not implement some of the things on my API, and I had to start seeing how to learn effort, assist them, and from there I decided to work front end. And I realized that my understanding of how the back-end technology works and how we send our results, APIs, encryption, and all these algorithms and things like that, I realized that my understanding of that made me better in, like being able to assist on the front end, and particularly on the back end, since I knew how the information that I received from the back end is utilized, it helped me in making sure that when I'm sending my response, okay, it helped me in putting it in a better way that a front-end developer can use. So the knowledge of how your technology or how your API is going to be used to, be very great in your own thinking process. You better understand the information, better understand, the structure of what it is you want to build, and that's a great thing. So if you're already in front-end space, mobile space, and now you want to get into back-end technology, you're very much welcome. And we would be also doing a little bit of front-end, not as something elaborate, okay, just for simple things like forms. When we get to simple logics like, authentication, authorization, and all this, we will build a little bit of some simple front-end applications. And if it's so difficult, I could just decide to just put up maybe like a file that you can easily accept, and then you can be able to clone that repo, and from there you build the backend to it. So generally, it's going to be a very interactive session. Okay, it's going to be a very interactive session. We are going to be sharing resources and materials via the Google Cloud, the Google Drive folder. So we're going to share the link to the Google Drive folder to our Slack workspace. And once again, let me put up our Slack handle. Okay, all right. Okay, so for me, my Slack handle is Aerosoft, and you can be on Slack workspace there. And Prosper, his is Prosper.js, so you meet us there, and you should be able to ask questions. Okay, so you ask questions if you're stuck somewhere. You reach out to us, and we'll be obliged. Okay, so as much as possible, my approach or my philosophy about coding is try to solve your errors as much as possible on your own. Okay, let contacting someone be like a last resort, because you want to get it done, or you've tried all possible means in your disposal. Okay, so let that be like a last resort. I've realized that the problems you try to solve on your own makes it a whole lot. The learning sinks in. Okay, the learning sinks in, and the next time you face that particular type of error, you know what is wrong, you know where it's from, and most likely you will be able to resolve it. So most times, if you stick with the problem long enough, you probably get it done. Okay, so that would be that. So I think at this point, we've exhausted so much of questions and everything. So if there will be no more questions for today, do we have any question? Anybody?
Yeah, guys, just before we jump into the questions, to add to what Ben has said, so about solving your issues and contacting someone like your last resort. Yeah, that's a very important thing to note, because one thing I find fascinating about the whole tech industry and the whole development process is the community, right? So there's a very vibrant community that backs every facet of programming and development. So backend is not different, right? So Stack Overflow is a very powerful platform, and so just know that there is no issue that you can ever have in this whole development thing that somebody has not experienced before. So you can always find resources to problems online. So just make heavy use of Stack Overflow, right? Because if you, just like he said, if you solve if you have a problem and then you try to solve it by yourself, it makes you understand the problem better, right? So because to me, one of the things I believe in all of this development thing is that you need to know why stuff work, and if it's not working, you should also need to know why it's not working. So you could have a problem, and then once you already have that problem solving mentality, and then you've already had some resources, you can just pinpoint an area where it's not working. You don't really need to know how to solve it, but then knowing where the problem is coming from is a huge step. So if you do not have that problem solving mentality, that self confidence that you could solve any problem, and then just keep running around to just ask people without actually getting to make your own research, it's going to become a lot more difficult for you, because as you encounter that problem later, you won't be able to understand the whole process. So I think errors and issues that arise from coding is just to teach you more and more on how these things work, and if they are working, and why it's working. So yeah, that's it for me. So Solomon, let's have you speak.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, sorry. My question is not. Let me just say, is actually pertaining to this particular group. Actually, not on what we have been taught. Actually, this on Slack channel, I saw that if you have not completed your test, you would not be able to proceed with this. So my question is, now that we started, and personally, I'm enjoying the class actually, but now that we started, and if we have submitted the tests too, and everything, I believe everything is fine, even though we have not gotten a result. But if at the end of the day, we submitted and we didn't meet up to the cutoff, or whichever ways we have been graded, are we still going to continue this class?
Okay.
Yeah.
I get your question. Well, the thing is, our approach basically development is it's not as though everybody will know everything that we said perfectly and be able to resolve it perfectly, but it's more like, what are the steps you're taking? If you submitted your task, for instance, and your task does not meet up, but you are close to it, you are on track, you are more likely to get it, given a little bit of review on what you've done, then for such kind of cases, you then be considered and be told, okay, this is your code, these are your challenges, go back to the city, work on it, and be sure to get it done. Okay, so it's not as though, well, what we just needed from your task is to be able to show that you can understand the level to which this class will go. Like, if you notice, we have spoken deeper about fundamentals, we've spoken about NodeJs, we've talked about GitHub and things like that. And you don't want a situation where people are just in the class, and after like a period of time, they just they can't catch up, they can't speak, they are not familiar with JavaScript, and then by the time we begin to start introducing concepts like design patterns and stuff, they are lost. But so what we wanted to do is we wanted to find out, you have at least a fundamental level of understanding and experience with which you can then be on the intermediate level. So from your tax perspective, yes, you should be able to flow through. And if your code has issues, does it work? If your code is working, but your issues are minimal, then I can assure you that you'll still be in the class. You just give them a review on what you can do to make your code properly work. And well, we are looking at training people. So so we're looking at training people. So nobody should be apprehensive about it. Okay.
Right. All right. I get that. Yes. Thank you very much.
All right. You're welcome. Okay. So once again, everyone, you are welcome. This is Node.js intermediate class, and from today, we'll be looking into deeper concepts. So please make sure that you have all your different setups ready. It's preferable that you are not watching as people who are using their mobile devices. It's preferable that you are working with your system. So as you see, you do give you a task, you be able to work on it. And then if you're having any challenge and stuff like that, I'll be able to say, okay, share your screen. Let me see how to help you out. So that way, you're working as with code, and when you have challenges, you can run. There are certain things that you will observe better when you code along. Okay, there are certain things you observe better when you code along. But if you're just watching as display and move from code to code, it's not going to help. So please try to have your setup correctly. Try to also be here for the classes, okay, as much as possible, rather than having to watch on YouTube. But we also want to say that this class is also streamed live to YouTube. So if there's something you miss in the class or something you want to go over, you can always go over the recordings to capture what we've done in the class. And then the materials we have will also help you in understanding some of the concepts we explain. Okay, so I think that's that. Prosper, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, first off, I want to commend you for the way you handled the class. Yeah, the slide was nice, and also you're audible and all. Yeah. So, guys, please let's try and be punctual to the classes and make sure we take our tasks very serious, right? And about the tasks, right? Please try as much as possible to do exactly as you're told. We know some of you like to go the extra and make stuff all cool, but then try and do it exactly as you're told, because going over the test you all submitted for this intermediate class, I saw some people, I think someone using TypeScript to do the test, or when we're actually dealing with JavaScript, right? So please try as much as possible to do exactly as you're told, right? So you could do some tweaks here and there, but then let it still be centered around what the assignment or the task entails, because every task is geared toward achieving a purpose. And so if you do things differently, we might not exactly achieve that purpose. So please try and do exactly as you're told, and be punctual to meetings. And please, we encourage participation. We're not just going to be the ones talking, not just the trainer will be the one talking. We also try as much as possible to make contributions, ask questions. And then even if it's not a question and you've got something to share about a certain concept the trainer has introduced, maybe something you've read, and then you could maybe throw some light on it. It will help you understand better and also help others understand. Yeah, so that's it for me. Thanks again for your time, and
okay.
I hope you have a lovely evening.
Okay, thanks again, Prosper. Thanks very much for helping in managing this class. And like we said, you can always reach us on Slack. And this program is brought to you by KodeCamp, and I really want to appreciate them, because it's a very big initiative. There are lots of programs. I was speaking with a friend of mine today, and there's a program that she is on. Learning data analytics, and that program is going for about 200,000. Okay, it's going for 200,000 for 4 months, and it's a program that I can't bet. I can't say that this program is going to produce the same amount of results that you can get from here on KodeCamp. Okay, so you can imagine how much others are paying to learn the same things that is being brought to you for free. So please do not take slight opportunity. Do not say because you're not paying for it, you relax and then you watch the recording. Please try to make premium use of this opportunity provided to you by KodeCamp. The drive of KodeCamp is, at the end of this program, we want to be able to present you as being employable. Okay, present you as being employable to people who want to be able to say, yes, this is one of our candidates, and this candidate can perform. Okay, can perform in the track, the learning track that he or she has been on. Okay, so I would love that each and everyone be very prompt to do assignments and to submit. We don't want assignments that we'll be moving into the subsequent week. Okay, so if you are given an assignment on Friday and the assignment is due by Tuesday in the upper week, then you should, as much as possible, be able to use your Sunday or your Saturday and Sunday, and if need be Monday and Tuesday to prepare and submit your assignment by Tuesday. Okay, so as much as possible, we would appreciate promptness, and yes, they are also going to be graded. Okay, your tasks or assignments are going to be graded and will be graded on different levels. Okay, so we're going to be graded on different levels. So I think the most important of them is you getting it done. But one of those things we'll also be looking at is promptness. If we're given a deadline by Tuesday and by Thursday your assignment is not done, just imagine that that's a client that or someone you're working for who you have not delivered on on the work. Okay, so there are many things we'll consider for the metrics, but holistically we'll look into. Okay, so there are many things we'll consider for the metrics of how you be graded. But one of the things I would like to say is that you should, as much as possible, meet with deadlines. If your deadline is Tuesday, let it be Tuesday. Let it not be as though you are working for an international client and you cannot meet up with the deadline as agreed on. Okay, so as much as possible, let's all be prompt, let's be quick, let's also be timely. So I think that's that for us. I don't know if Ikis, are you here on this? Are you here on this call? Ikis, are you here on this call?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here, Mr. Benjamin.
Okay, so yes, so we're good for today. So I think over to you.
Okay, so yes, thank you guys very much, Mr. Benjamin. That was actually a very insightful one. Mr. Prosper, Ola Oluwa, Delight Emmanuel, Gilbert, Kinechukwu, Moscow, Johnson, Solomon, and Mendy. So thank you for jumping on the call today. I hope to see you in the next call. And of course, if you have any questions, you can reach out to your trainer and your mentor, and they will actually help you sort out whatever you need. Okay, so thank you very much and have a wonderful day.